And this is what basically Oslo was about. Now, I want to go very quickly through East Jerusalem, because there's been a lot of East Jerusalem in the news lately. And you can see from the pie chart that I've got there, I'm going to go through this really quickly. The way that Israel's strategy has played itself out is not just in the West Bank, not just in the Gaza Strip, but also in East Jerusalem, and also for Palestinian citizens of Israel. And you can see from the pie chart that of the area that is Jerusalem, you've got about 35% of it, of the land, that's been expropriated for Israeli settlements. You've got 22% of it that's been zoned green, 30% of it, which is what they call unplanned areas, which will later be used for Israeli settlements, and only 13% of the land that belongs to Palestinians in East Jerusalem actually gets zoned for Palestinian construction. Every year there's a shortfall of 1,100 housing units in East Jerusalem. And the Israelis refuse to give permits, building permits, to Palestinians in order to build their houses or to expand their houses or to build a second floor on their houses. And this is a lot of the work that I do now, which is that in a lot of cases, because the Israelis won't give people permits, families end up needing to build anyway. They have no place to go. They end up building up. The Israelis will wait until the floor is practically completed. And once the floor is practically completed, the family will get a demolition order. And not just that floor will be demolished, but the entire structure will be demolished. And just last year alone, there were 105 houses in East Jerusalem that were demolished. An additional 200 were demolished in the rest of the West Bank. And just another 39, since I arrived in Australia 2 days ago, have been slated for home demolition. I'm going to do this slide very, very quickly. Again, just so you see what the system is, and in terms of how this process of confining the Palestinians into this little space and taking their land has taken shape in Jerusalem. So there's a picture of Jerusalem and its environments, not just Jerusalem itself. This is the slide that you just saw come up, is where Israel expanded the municipal boundaries of Jerusalem. Now, nobody has recognized the expansion of Jerusalem's boundaries, except Israel, which is why, by the way, you don't have an Australian embassy in Jerusalem, but you have it in Tel Aviv. That's a different story. Anyway, here are the settlements that existed in 1987. There were quite a few that existed in 1987. Again, the idea was try to take as much land, confine, take as much land. Now here's how many settlements exist in 2007, so in a 20-year period. So you can see how quickly the process of, during the period of negotiations, when, as I said, I was checked out, and assuming other people were checked out, this is what was actually happening. Now in that area as well, in the city of Jerusalem, there's also, this is where they've constructed the wall. Again, you can see the same pattern following itself. Confine, take as much land. Confine, take as much land. And you'll see also, just like in that picture of Kalkidia, you see the wall goes around the settlements. So it leads one to question, well, if this is really a question of security, why isn't it just on the 1967 border? It doesn't make sense. Why is it actually going around the settlements if it's not for the fact that it's a land grab? Again, more checkpoints. More expansion areas in the area of Jerusalem. And here's the Israeli-only roads cutting through Palestinian territory. You can see they connect the settlements to one another and connect those settlements into Israel. And here's what the wall actually looks like. Now, this picture was taken right in the heart of East Jerusalem. This family here is Palestinian. This family here is Palestinian. This land here is Palestinian. This land here is Palestinian. It is in no way, shape, or form actually linked to anything that of dividing Israelis from Palestinians. But the wall is designed to exclusively divide Palestinians from Palestinians. The wall takes two primary shapes. The first is this concrete wall. The concrete wall is about it's about 7 meters high. I don't know if you do meters here, right? Yeah.
It's about as tall as this roof.
It's, yeah, about 7 meters. Is that it?
Yeah.
25 feet high. And stretching from one area to the other area. That's in one shape, in one area. Stretching from one area to the other area, it can be about 50 meters in depth. And in other areas, as you can see from this picture, it takes different forms, from an electrified fence, a ditch, a patrol road, a dirt road, another patrol road, and so on and so forth, with observation towers all throughout. And as I had mentioned before this, that you can see from this process that the intention is confine and take as much land, confine and take as much land. And you can see the statistics there in terms of how many housing orders we still have pending for demolition, which is over 1,500, with just an additional 39 announced in this area alone. So 39 of these houses are going to be demolished. Some of these houses have already been demolished, but an additional 39 are going to be demolished in that area. Here's the numbers from 2009. I'm going to go through that really quickly. Now, I want to go, because Gaza is so much in the news, and I wanted to focus a little bit on Gaza before proceeding. So I used to live in Gaza. It was the best year and a half of my life. In the year 2005, the Israelis evacuated, it was roughly 8,000 to 9,000 settlers from the Gaza Strip. And it was to a great deal of fanfare. They got a lot of credit for it. Oh, wow, this is so painful, taking out Israelis, and people crying, this is going to destroy the nation of Israel. But what they didn't mention was how few Israelis actually lived in the Gaza Strip, and how much of the land they actually controlled. So the settlers, oh, I shouldn't have done that, that's all right. The settlers who were living there at the time, there were 9,000 registered, 8,000 to 9,000 registered Israelis living there, but actually fewer than that living there. The settlements themselves, and the military bases, and the nature reserves, and the roads, and all that stuff that you saw in the West Bank, actually ended up controlling about 40% of the land of the Gaza Strip. Now, Gaza is the most densely populated place on Earth. It's got 1.5 million Palestinians living in a stretch of land that is 40 kilometers long, and this is 20 miles wide at its widest point. 1.5 million Palestinians, 80% of whom are actually refugees. And so to see that 8,000 or 9,000 settlers are controlling 40% of the land of that area makes you realize just how tiny a space it is. And that exactly what Israel's design was, which is confine them into as little space as possible and take as much of their land. Now, when the Israelis evacuated in 2005, again, to a great deal of fanfare, Israel got a lot of money for the fact that it evacuated from these settlements. Just in the same way that it got money in 1993 for evacuating for entering into the peace process, so too it ended up getting a lot of money in 2005 for evacuating from the Gaza Strip. But it continued to say a couple of things, which is, one, while we're going to end the process of colonization in the Gaza Strip, we're not going to end the process of control. And they didn't. So Israel continued to control the airspace, and it still does. Israel continued to control the land crossing, and still does. Israel continued to control the territorial waters, and still does. And not only that, but not only does it control those areas, but it then began to institute a thing called a no-go zone. So you can see the areas that are in purple. This is a self-declared Israeli buffer zone inside the Gaza Strip. And just in the past month alone, there have been 3 Palestinians who have been killed in that buffer zone because they've been protesting the fact that there's a buffer zone in their own territory. So Israel will